Hey guys, what up? Total Control 871. Chilling out here, Shore Toyota. You just missed a couple of sales. There are people out here. Had some people go home, happy owners of Toyota. Good for them. Alright guys, today I want to talk about the American economy. What else? And the storied history of the American economy. Because I'm always autopsying. Is that a word? Autopsying the American economy. You see, I'm not just simply content with analyzing my own situation. I want to know what the hell went wrong. Because believe me, it did. Something seriously went wrong, real bad. You know, when did the train jump the tracks and it all go to shit? So, from what I understand of my understanding of the history of automobiles, I forget if it was like Henry Ford and Mercedes-Benz. Between the two of them, I forget who exactly filed the patent or who is actually accredited with the very first automobile, because you had some contraptions, you know, invented by a number of people. There were obviously other countries and other people within those respective countries working with the internal combustion engine, attaching it to a drivetrain. There you go, drivetrain. And, you know, working on a car, you know. I think you even had some that were even steam-powered or something like that. Anyway, point is, who exactly holds the title of the very first person to invent the car? I really don't know. It was all pretty much around the same time, turn of the century, mid-1800s, late 1800s, turn of the century type stuff, right? But one thing nobody can take away from Henry Ford, and that is indeed the reality and the fact that it was he who mass-produced the first vehicles. When our first vehicles came out, even when Ford had put out his first vehicle incarnation, Mercedes-Benz and other types of inventors who put out their horseless carriages, it's pretty much what they were called back then, a horseless carriage. You know, they were playthings of the rich. Playthings of the rich. To be fair, so was the bicycle. The bicycle was also a plaything of the rich. And what then happens is that Henry Ford, mass production, it's like if you look at a type of list, you know, because you hear the left and the right talking about top 1% and on down. Okay, so if our top 1% could only afford a vehicle, okay, top 1%, what Henry Ford did, like a shade, he basically lowered it for other economic classes, middle class, you know, by mass producing, getting costs down. He then put the automobile within grasp of the middle class. Okay, but even then, it wasn't exactly the cheapest thing there was. So we're talking turn of the century, 1900 or whatever it may be. I think the first Model T Ford rolled off of the assembly line with a price tag of $400, if I'm not mistaken. You guys can fact check it, you know, the historians and things like that. $400 was a phenomenal amount of money back then. We'll talk about inflation and the strength of the dollar and the purchasing power of the dollar. That's a different discussion. We'll hold for another time. But so we got our mass-produced vehicle. It's now within grasp. Now, what Henry Ford did was, because this is during your revolution, industrial revolution, okay? This revolution was absolutely phenomenal, what Henry Ford did. You see, he did far, far more than just simply catapult his own company, his own car company, to unprecedented success and, wealth. Think of everything that came along with it. Big oil. Well, I don't even know if it could be called big oil back then. I don't think it could. But, you had your oil industry. It now had a whole new demographic. It's now just simply, a whole new type of creature, if you want to look at it like that. Like an automobile as being a type of creature. To be fed, a whole new species on the road to be fed with its oil. And so you've got that's now exploded in demand for that oil, gasoline. Because before, I think the petroleum products was really only used for heating and things like that. Now it's being used for transportation. And then, of course, probably every bit as lucrative as our big oil infrastructure. These vehicles these aren't horse-drawn carriages. They're going to need roads to drive on. Oh my God. Not only, okay, so let's just say you weren't wealthy enough, because to be honest, I think the first mass-produced cars, they're probably more affordable by the upper class. I've spoke about it before. Think a lot of your professions today, it was not unheard of at all to see your local policeman get on a public bus, and go home on the bus, go home on the train. They used public transportation because they just simply didn't make enough money back then. So we now have roads, and who's going to build these roads? It's not just simply going to be the upper class, the engineers who designed them, but now you're going to need, I believe, what is it the Irish say? They were born with an Irish teaspoon, the old dirt shovel. So now you're out there building roads where, we're talking like pre-industrial revolution. So, man, there was just, oh my God, hundreds of millions of man hours, needed to create roads for these vehicles. So, the advent of the mass-produced vehicle, it dumped phenomenal wealth into the American economy. As I say, as we autopsy these things, where did it go wrong? What happened? You guys have heard me speak of the cell phone epiphany, cell phone I'm talking to you on. I, a homeless man, have this phone. Let's see, how can I say this? Remember the Syrian refugees? We haven't really heard too much about them as of late. But I know, who remembers the, what is it now? There was a little girl made an impassioned plea to Michelle Obama. This is before Trump was president. Impassioned plea, please save us, Syria, and yada yada, the whole thing like that, right? And of course, this is all done online with a cell phone. And these, I say that because, a homeless man like me, people balk at and find very difficult to understand. How in the world could you possibly have a cell phone? This doesn't make any sense. How you got a phone if you homeless? Yet these Syrian refugees, who are every bit as impoverished, or if not more, according to you guys, excuse me, I think something is on the lens. I'm gonna be upset if that was like on the lens throughout the whole thing, but what I'm saying is that, nobody blinks an eye, Point is, I'm trying to make a comparison here about the cell phone epiphany, cell phone revolution. You guys heard me speak about it before. Not only was the rich man's plaything, the mobile phone, put into the hands of the middle class, but from then it like continued to trickle down to people, you know, far below middle class, the proletariat, the poor. Apple, now valued at $1 trillion, first publicly traded company valued at $1 trillion. I know Steve Jobs, hold on, I swear to God, the noise pollution is so bad. I know Steve Jobs had all kinds of designs and aspirations for the home PC and computers and all kinds of stuff, you know. He's probably geeking out with the home computer. But the reality is, it was definitely not the home computer that catapulted Apple to where it's at now. Nowhere near. It was the phone. It was their iPhone. That was the defining moment, you know. Don't get me wrong, Apple was definitely an extremely valuable company even before the the cell phone epiphany happened. But yeah, and then after our cell phone, smartphone, data mining, oh my God, the data plans that we pay, you know, we pay for our service, that's nowhere near as valuable as our keystrokes. So, you know, yes, they're definitely happy to get the monthly amounts of money that we pay for our data plans, but what is 100 times more valuable to these companies are our keystrokes, our data. Where do you go with your phone? What do you do with it? And then they sell that information. Big Auto, how come it hasn't had that epiphany yet, where it makes its products available to everybody? You know, we're talking transportation here. Transportation is an extremely big deal. Honestly, that's where I say the American economy screwed up big time. These things were introduced into the American economy at such a price point that too much of the American economy is dependent on, you know, so you got like 2/3 that go to your housing, and a huge massive chunk, you know, like the rest of it goes. So basically half your wage goes to your housing, the other half goes toward transportation and food and utilities and things like that. So the American economy, it's just simply too entrenched in big auto, big oil, big infrastructure, you know. We're, like, I'll tell you, when you hear me talk about big infrastructure, bike paths and things like that, construction companies, they undertake the project with a certain amount of apprehension. I mean, they're happy to undertake it only because, especially here in America, there are so very few vehicular cyclists, so very few. You know, it's all very recreational oriented, people who do cycle. But the more vehicular cyclists, the more people abandon their vehicles for alternative modes of our transportation, you're going to have construction companies that are going to... Bike paths don't deteriorate. That's where I'm trying to go with that. See, your big trucks, semis, and all that, they destroy roads. You know, sometimes you hear people will say, "Oh, I pay for these roads, me and my car and my gas tax, rah, rah, rah." You know, what they don't understand is that all of the roads, the traffic control devices, all of that stuff, it's so expensive because we'll put a pin in your bad driving, you know, and you know, you need these traffic control devices because you're so bad, you know. Anyway, but your vehicles, these massive trucks, they destroy the road. Bicycles do not. When a bike path is made, as long as tree branches don't destroy it, not branches, I'm sorry, roots. Sometimes the roots of the trees will push up and break up the bike path. But other than that, once the path is laid, it's laid, man. I mean, maybe the sides of it will have to be tree trimmed, stuff like that. But there really is no repair because, you know, on so much of our infrastructure, we've just become accustomed to there always being some kind of construction going on, some sort of project going on. Who remembers that movie, Falling Down, Michael Douglas, the construction scene, you know? Are you even doing anything? Is anything actually wrong? Or are you just simply coming up with an excuse to spend city money, you know? You know, you can run with that whole topic in and of itself. But yeah, so, you know, the advent of the automobile, it carries so much of the American economy with it. We saw what happened in 08-09 when the mortgage meltdown happened, man. I'm not gonna ride the Jews' ass today. That's a whole different thing when I go to talk about that. But the point is that we saw what happened when that market, that stock market began to crash. You know, people began to lose their fucking shit, man. Just it was just ugly. Ugly. I distinctly remember that was the longest I had ever been on unemployment in my life. The extensions were just being handed out. You didn't even have to apply for it. It was just automatically renewed, your extension. And rightfully so, man. The jobs were just annihilated. Target, like the security manager, they put that manager that's supposed to only be doing security work to work on the floor. That's just one single aspect of what I'm talking about. These major corporations, they demanded to get more bang for their buck. If you want to remain employed and not be part of the bloodbath that happens in 08-09, then you're going to be okay with now doing 3 people's jobs. You know, that's a whole thing in of itself. But yeah, so there we go. You know, big auto, it carried so much and it left so many people behind. I don't know if I got to that aspect of my argument here or not. The people. We talked about the monetary aspect of this, but the people. Today, they got construction work going on. Care to guess what type of people were doing it? Yes, Latino. I have absolutely no idea anything about their immigration status. They could be American born or not. You know, I really don't know. The point. We see what happens with white nepotism, middle class America, Americana, Norman Rockwell, 1950s, that slice of American pie, My Three Sons, Leave It to Beaver, Dick Van Dyke Show, Bewitched. We see a type of conservative, middle-class, white America where the father sits around, this is after work now, in a shirt and tie. You sit around your own house in a shirt and tie. You know, but that was, and of course, it was only on the weekend. On your Saturday and Sunday would they switch out of the shirt and tie and maybe, you know, or maybe a polo. They might be in a polo or a sweater vest or, oh, so conservative. Maybe that's why Santorum wears his sweater vest. Anyway, but yeah, those were the type of people who benefited from the sweep and the whole, you know, boom of the Industrial Revolution. Minorities, black people, Latino people, black and brown people, women, be it white or any other color, all left behind, and leaving them behind, just like with our cell phone epiphany, you left behind phenomenal wealth. You completely underestimated your demographic. You built an entire economy centered around a WASP, a white male WASP, heterosexual, white male Christian, Anglo-Saxon. So that's what you did. So and you left a lot of money on the table, basically. That's what's happening. These vehicles, you know, they're definitely come a long way from $400 coming off the manufacturing plant. Companies continue to push the envelope. How can I make it cheaper? How can I make it cheaper? You know, the cost cuttings were just simply out of, you know, crazy, out of control. If it weren't for government regulation, you know, hey, this thing has to be this safe now, god damn it. You know, regulations that Trump wants to eradicate. Anyway, you know, if it weren't for those regulations, then, you know, we'd just be screwed. But they whittle down the process of manufacturing to the point where their profit margin is just ridiculous, just ridiculously swollen, and if anything threatens that overly inflated profit margin, their response, the corporation's response, is not just simply, oh, well, wasn't such a great year, I guess we didn't just simply earn as much. Fuck no. Okay, who are we going to fire? Who's going to lose their job? Okay, because we don't eat losses. The American proletariat, they eat losses. The American citizen, our customers, are the ones who eat the loss. We don't eat loss, okay? That gets passed along to the consumer. The consumer consumes loss. We don't consume loss. And that kind of thing, it just gave rise to these vehicles that now cost anywhere from 30 to 40 to 50 for your average vehicle. You know, tens of thousands of dollars. You know, we're not talking about like fancy sport cars, nothing like that. And of course, these vehicles have incredibly short, limited lifespans. Incredibly limited. None of these vehicles will ever be called a classic. They'll never get the coveted title of a classic, of like a 78 Camaro or... No. The classic era is gone. They'll never be antiques, you know. What they will be is crushed aluminum cubes in a landfill. That's their destiny. Every last single one will eventually end up as a crushed aluminum cube. Their successor, that much more expensive. That much more expensive. So there you go, guys. Let's see, did I cover everything? Autopsy, you know, where did it all go wrong? The boom in the industry didn't include everybody. Only select people, only certain people got to benefit from it. America paints itself into a corner, you know. It's desperate to get out of its mistake, you know. We need new cash infusions, new cash revenues, but how do we do it? So what's stopping Big Auto from having its own little cell phone epiphany and making, you know, the what I would call a transpod? I will transpod myself. Basically just simply a type of velo car. Think like a fiberglass body, you know, around our bicycle. You can put a motor on it, electric motor or not, you know, whatever's to your liking, you know. Just for simply going like right now, I'm going down to the gym, get a hot shower. I don't need a Ram 1500, you know, what was that, 5.7 liter, let's see if I can zoom here, 5.7 liter Hemi 1500. Yeah, I might be fat, but I don't need a 5.7 liter Hemi engine to transport me a handful of miles just to go get a hot shower. I really don't. I don't need a Hemi engine to go food shopping. I don't need these phenomenally huge things just to simply do the most simplest of everyday things. hey, it could be argued, you know, when people buy, like, who remembers that blue Jeep, Smurf Jeep, and sport vehicles like that, you know, is it all just for show? Is it all just for show? Or do you actually have need of it? Of something that purports to be that powerful? Because I'm going to tell you right now, today's engines and drivetrains, they're not what they used to be. No way, no how. Now, true, they might be a lot more quiet, a lot less vibration, but yeah, nowhere near as powerful. And they don't last as long. Speaking of, however, you know, when the first family would get their vehicle, it would be something like a pickup truck. Who remembers our Grapes of Wrath? You know, the family, they took to the road in their jalopy of a pickup, you know. Beverly Hillbillies, we saw them with their jalopy of a pickup truck. Why did so many people of that demographic and era have such a vehicle? Because it's utilitarian oriented. It's much more than just simply trips to the market. That vehicle will get hired out, rented out to do jobs for your neighbor, for, you know, if there's a construction, say if there's a highway job, you know, because our brand new railroads in the works, all the brand new infrastructure, okay, all the brand new infrastructure, they would subcontract and subcontract, and yes, work would come your way. We need X amount of raw material transported here to there. The neighborhood dads, you know, the farm owners, they get out there with their trucks, you know, load up the truck, and I could tell you right now, yeah, if you were to drop a load into the back of that pickup, oh my God, this thing, as pretty as it may be, it would scream bloody fucking murder. All right, your Beverly Hillbilly crank pickup, our crank cars and whatnot, them old jalopies, and man, you could, and I mean the axle hell, because see, I'm about to blanch again. You know, the materials were all fresh and new. Somebody pointed that out. You know, recycling is good, but how many times can you recycle a raw material before the quality of that material begins to suffer? I really don't know. I can't say. I know metals go through smelting and things like that, but remember, these companies are always looking to get it done cheaper. Smelting and requires a lot of fuel, a lot of intense fire. Fuel costs money. All that stuff costs money. So, we'll skip a couple of smelting cycles. What's the big deal? What's the big deal? Because after all, they have your mindset already in mind. These guys, these middle-aged dudes, these dads, they just want these trucks to look badass, okay? You know, and they go their football tailgating, okay? The only thing their truck really needs to be able to do, you know, the barbecue, the coolers, the you know, I mean, yes, I'm sure that the vehicle can perform, you know, a loaded duty. I understand, but no, my point, I think I've made my point. The vehicle simply won't hold up to the vehicle of 70, 80 years ago. It just simply won't hold up. All right, I think I hit everything. Poor craftsmanship, the boom of the big auto was only made available to certain people. You had to be the right kind of person. A lot of people were left behind. The infrastructure that accompanied the boom of the big auto, that only catered to certain people. Again, you're leaving people behind. So much was left behind. So much was left behind. And in the wake of it all, it laid the groundwork for a lot of poverty. So when America painted itself into the corner, you know, it desperately needs a cash infusion. Too late, too late. Amir does not want your car. You made it so expensive to the point that I don't want it. Even if somebody were to hand me $20,000, $30,000, or $40,000, I have no desire for these vehicles. You made it too expensive. I just simply have no desire for it. And I don't want to get on that hamster wheel. The registration, the license plates, the government needs to be paid. Everybody's looking. You buy one of these things and everybody's looking to get paid. The government, big oil, the banks who hold the title to it, everybody's looking to get paid. All right, guys, hopefully I have made my point. This is long. Hopefully I've made my point. All right. Total Control 871.